Hello everyone. Today I am here with a new chapter of class 11th History An Empire Across Three Continents, Part 1. Here you can see the Roman Empire. In this chapter we talk about the Roman Empire and it was spread across three continents. So what are the sources? There is a rich collection of sources to study Roman history, like texts, documents, and material remains. In archaeological, uh, we came to know about Roman Empire with the help of amphitheaters, stat- statues, aqueducts, etc. And in the written, that means literary work, we came to know about texts like historians written by contemporary historians or documents, and material remains, that means buildings. A documentary source including mainly inscription and papyri. Inscriptions were usually cut on stone, so a large number survive in both Greek and Latin. So inscriptions, already told you in the previous videos also, they are written on or engraved on hard surface like stone or metal. But the papyrus was a reed-like plant that grew along the bank of the Nile in Egypt and was processed to produce a writing material that was very widely used in everyday life. Thousands of contracts, accounts, letters, and official documents survive on papyrus and have been published by scholars who are called papyrologists. Now, the boundaries of Roman Empire. The ancient Roman Empire, which was spread across the three continents, namely Europe, Asia, and Africa. To the north, the boundaries of the empire was formed by two great rivers, the Rhine and Danube. To the south, by the huge expanse of desert called the Sahara. To the east, river Euphrates and to the west, Atlantic Ocean. The vast stretch of the territories was the Roman Empire. That is why Roman Empire is called the empire across three continents. The Mediterranean Sea is called the heart of Roman's empire. Now the division of Roman Empire. The Roman Empire can broadly be divided into two phases, early and late, divided by the 3rd century as a sort of historical watershed between them. In other words, the whole period from the beginning of the Roman Empire to the remaining part of the 3rd century can be called the early empire, and the period from the 3rd century to the end called the late empire. Okay, now we talk about the political history of Roman Empire. So we talk about the political history of Roman Empire. First of all, we talk about the early empire, in which many languages were spoken in the empire, but for the officially Latin and Greek were the most widely used. The regime established by Augustus, the first emperor, in 27 BC was called the Principate, which means he was leading citizen. Princeps in Latin, not the absolute ruler. That means he is the leading citizen but not the ruler. He ruled till 14 BC and brought to an end the chaotic conditions prevailing in Roman Empire. The Principate was advised by the Senate, which had existed in Rome for centuries. This body, which had controlled Rome earlier in the days when it was republic, and remained a body representing the aristocracy, that is, the wealthiest families of Roman and later Italian descent, mainly landlords. Then, next to the emperor and the senate, the other key institutions of imperial rule was the army. Rome had professional conscripted army. Military services was compulsory for certain groups of categories of the population for a minimum of 25 years. The emperor, the aristocracy, and the army were the three main players in the political history of empire. The success of individual emperors depended on their control of the army, and when the armies were divided, the result usually was civil war, except for one notorious year, 69 CE, when four emperors mounted the throne in quick succession. We will continue these topics like external warfare, a city in Roman Empire, and entertainment in our next videos. Now we talk about the emperors. Augustus, he was a Roman Empire made unprecedented growth in the field of literature during Augustan age. Augustine played a significant role in expansion of Roman Empire. He appointed Tiberius, his adopted son, as his successor, who ruled from 14 to 37 CE. The empire he was already so vast that further expansion was felt to be unnecessary. Trajan was a famous Roman emperor who ruled from 98 to 117 CE. He made an immense contribution in expanding Roman Empire. The only major campaign of expansion in the early empire was Trajan's fruitless occupation of territory across the Euphrates. In the year 113 and 17 CE, abandoned by his successors. Now the 3rd century crisis. The first two centuries were free from civil war. Therefore, it was known as period of peace, prosperity, and economic expansion. External warfare was also much less common in the first 2 centuries, but the 3rd century brought in the first sign of internal conflicts. From the 230s, the Roman Empire found itself fighting on several fronts simultaneously. An aggressive dynasty called the Sasanians emerged in 225, which expanded rapidly just within 15 years in the direction of the Euphrates. Shapur I, the Iranian ruler, claimed he has crushed Roman army of 60,000 and even captured the eastern capital of Antioch. A whole series of Germanic tribes, or rather tribal began to move against the Rhine and Danube frontiers, and the entered period from 233 to 280 saw repeated invasions of a whole load of provinces that stretched from the Black Sea to the Alps and southern Germany. The Romans were forced to abandon much of the territory beyond the Danube. There was a rapid succession of emperors in this century, 25 emperors in 47 years. It is an obvious symptoms of the strain faced by the empire in this period. Now the gender literacy and culture. The system of nuclear family in the Roman society was one of its modern feature. The family used to be patriarchal in nature and the slave were included in the family. Marriages were generally arranged and there is no doubt that women were often subject to domination of their husbands. Sometimes they were tortured by their husband. The literacy rate was casual and varied greatly between different parts of the empire. There is one example where it is mentioned that advertisements were written on the wall. So that means the people they were literate so that they can read all these advertisements. Now the cultural diversity. The cultural diversity of the empire was reflected in many ways. Numerous languages that were spoken in Roman Empire were Aramaic, Coptic, Punic, Berber and Celtic. But many of these linguistic cultures were purely oral, at least until a script was invented for them. Among the above mentioned languages, Armenian began to be written as late as the 5th century. Now the sources of entertainment. Colosseum, huge place where gladiators fought with beasts. It could accommodate 60,000 people. Amphitheater, it was used for military drill and for staggering entertainment for the soldiers. The urban population also enjoyed a much higher level of entertainment. For example, one calendar tells us that spectacular shows filled no less than 176 days of the year. In this picture, you can see the Colosseum and amphitheater. So, that's all for today. We'll continue this chapter in our next video. Thank you.